Here we go.
There
Lucy
we are.
Taylor, welcome to the Rachel Holmes podcast.
Hi.
How how are you?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to get you on because last week, you did a fantastic Decades Reloaded class for my Studio Live group that everybody loved,
Oh,
and we met in April, didn't we? We met
we
at
did
the
at Ripley.
at River. It was lovely to meet you, and I love everything that you're doing. And I thought your story is so inspiring. And I've just finished doing a presenter course for lots of instructors who are wanting to get their name out there and their brand out there. And I thought, great. I wonder if Lucy will come on the podcast and have a chat about her journey. So let's rewind it all the way back. How did you get in the fitness industry? That's the big one. What inspired you to become a fitness professional?
So actually, I danced a lot when I was growing up, and then as I got into my late teens, I'd been told by orthopedics to stop dancing because of the damage to my spine. Um, I won't go into too much detail about that because we'll be here all day. And it turns out it wasn't what the problem was anyway, which I only found out end of last year. So I'd been told to stop dancing, and I did. And then I found Zumba.
Ah,
Yeah,
so you
there was a
came
bit of
in
a
the
happy
Zumba door.
compromise. Yeah, so I actually worked in IT full time for a really long time, and I used to go to the gym on my lunch break, and then I'd go and do a class after work to miss the traffic driving back home. And
Right.
I really got into the Zumba side of things, and it wasn't aggravating my back. So I was like, this is great. I can still dance, I can enjoy music, it doesn't hurt my back. I feel heaps better dancing. And I definitely always enjoyed it more than being in the gym.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's kind of where it went. And the Townsend twins?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was their Zumba class.
Oh, wow. Oh, I
Um,
didn't know that.
Yeah, and we got talking, and they said, "Do you dance?" And I was like, "I might have done a bit over the years." Yeah, they were like, "You'd be a great Zumba instructor," and I was like, "Oh no, bit past that now, you know." And they're like, "No, you'd be great. You'd love it." And I thought, "Oh, okay." Well, I had a little think over it. I thought, well, I could just go and do the training and maybe do it a bit on the side for fun, you know. So I
Yeah.
did. So actually, we can thank the twins for me ever coming into the fitness industry, because otherwise
Wow.
it would never have crossed my mind to transition over. And I was just doing it for fun, just around my day job. Started to find that I could really tap into more of who I was whilst in class, rather than the person that I was being in IT, um, which probably suppressed my personality somewhat,
Yeah.
trying to sit quietly in a room full of people all the time and whatnot.
Oh, I can't
So, come on.
I can't imagine. I had no idea that you worked in IT. Did you work in the city then? Because you're based in Essex, aren't you? So were you
I
work
am in Ipswich, yeah. So, I've been in a few different places. I started off working in IT by sort of chance, actually. I'd been made redundant when I was 18, and I got drafted in to an IT job at our local hospital in their informatics department.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, actually, I'm not too bad at this. And I was at first, but after a while, I made some great friends there who spent a lot of time in the evenings teaching me how to do everything that I needed to do. Um, Wonderful, wonderful people. They were very patient with me. Um, and then I went off to London, and I contracted all over London, working in different NHS trusts and primary care trusts,
Ah.
doing informatics for them. And when I got a little bit older, I decided I wanted to come and live back local again. And I started looking for something a little bit more permanent rather than always changing places. And I went and did some work in a different line of IT, doing sort of user acceptance testing, everything else. So the companies that were like insurance companies and fund platforms that developed websites, I'd be involved in coordinating the testing of those before they got rolled out for the general public to use, or for financial advisors and everything else. And then I moved into business systems analysis and got made redundant again whilst I was on my
Ah.
maternity leave with my son.
Ah. Right.
And that's the job where I was doing. That's the job where I was doing the Zumba, and I'd already trained, had my maternity leave, and I thought I might do this a little bit more. And I took on another job 10 months after having my son in project management for a company that was more local, and I was never supposed to go back full time. I was always going to have sort of part-time fitness, part-time IT job, rest of the time be mum and make it work for me a little bit better. And it didn't really go to plan, so I took on this IT job, a little bit more local, doing the project management, and I was on the road an awful lot, much further up your way than my way and beyond. I was traveling sort of the Lake District way, doing
Oh
Leeds.
my gosh, that's miles.
And then one day in the week, I'd have to make it over to different parts of London, and it was just all over the shop. And my son didn't know who I was anymore. He was 12 months old, and he'd call the nanny mum. He'd cry for her rather than me, and I was a bit like, oh, this isn't great. And then my mum went and died. I was in the Lake District for work. It was the first time I'd left my son overnight. And you go through, you're a mum, so you get it, the first time you leave your firstborn overnight, you're like, oh, something's going to go wrong. I'm really far away. It's a long journey back. I'm not going to be able to just get back if there's a problem. Really panicking. He was fine. She was not. So I woke up the next day and she was gone. So she wasn't feeling very well. They said she had the flu and to sleep it off, and then she just didn't wake up. So,
oh my gosh.
she actually had pneumonia that had been misdiagnosed, unfortunately, but put life into perspective somewhat. And pretty much the only thing that I wanted to do for all of that time was dance. And the only place I felt like I was back in my own head was in the front of a class full of people, teaching the classes, and the rest of the day-to-day stuff on the road, being on my own all the time, traveling around, doesn't really do much for your mental health. And it all got a little bit too much. In all honesty, I was really withdrawn. I didn't talk anymore. I didn't want to do anything anymore. I was working, but I wasn't doing anything overly productive. I couldn't sort of piece together what it was I was supposed to be doing. People would tell me information. As a project manager, you kind of need to take on everything that's going on and be able to fully understand the whole thing. And I'm trying to learn this new business, and project management was new to me because I'd been doing business analysis beforehand, and it was all a bit, okay, nothing's making sense, nothing's sinking in. My brain doesn't know if I'm coming or going. I don't feel like talking to anyone. I don't want to do anything. I just want to go and bury myself in a studio with some music on loud and dance all the time.
Yeah.
And my other half said, do you really think that this is worth it? And I was like, no, not really. And he was like, I think you need to change your job. I think you need to just say, do you know what, this isn't working for me right now. Go and do the one that makes you happy, the one that brings you back out of yourself. And there's a lot of stuff in between that I'm not allowed to talk about, but it was a bit of a driving force for me to just wake people up a little bit more to mental health and stigma around mental health and increasing support for mental health. I was very fortunate that I had an exceptional GP at the time who had also known my mum. She worked at the practice, who had misdiagnosed my mum, so she knew exactly what had gone on. She was extremely supportive at the time and helped me make some important decisions about where to go next, as well as having that support at home. And it would have been really easy for them to stick me on antidepressants, call it grief and be done with it, and send me on my way. But because I have borderline personality disorder as well, it's not always the best approach. It wasn't something that she wanted to explore with me right away. She wanted to just, take steps within my actual life and what I was doing to come out of the other side of the grief, rather than trying to put a band-aid on it. And we knew that the one thing that worked was dancing. teaching the classes, because you'll get this, there's something so fulfilling about helping other people, making other people feel better. And I don't know if it's something that stuck. My mum said to me when I was a little girl, I used to like, she had this massive like bay window in their bedroom, and I'd go in there in the morning, I'd be talking to her, and I'd be sort of like acting or singing and dancing or doing, I can't sing, by the way, doing something in front of this window. And she just said to me once, I couldn't even tell you how old I was. She just said, "You're going to make people laugh one day. You're going to make people smile when you get older."
Oh,
And now, considering I'm not a naturally funny person, I wasn't really sure how that would turn out later in life. But it turns out that skill was actually being a bit of a muppet at the front of a room full of people trying to dance and forgetting what I'm doing.
amazing.
So, and it is so rewarding doing that. And I think it was that as much as the dancing that pulled me out of the, I call it delayed grief, because it took me a year before I actually had a breakdown after we lost her. So it took a whole year of trying to not process the grief to then come out the other side. So obviously I went and decided to try and enhance that for other people. It was never intended to be where I've gone now. I was only ever looking locally to support other people who were feeling alone, like nobody else gets it, and a bit lost in their own head, and just working with things that I enjoyed doing. I taught a few brands at this point. It wasn't just I'd gone on to do train in other concepts as well, but I always wanted to do something a bit broader than what the concepts allowed. There was more that I wanted to do with it. So I'm a stickler for rules. I didn't want to break anyone's rules, so I just had to create my own class to do.
Oh, that's so, what a story. And I mean, I'm sure that you've obviously condensed a massive story into like a few minutes, but so amazing that out of terrible grief and sadness and a new you was born, a Zumba teacher, and then a fitness instructor, and then going on to teach different concepts and having an idea of your own. So where did the idea of Decades come from, and why Decades Reloaded? What was the significance?
It was to do with the music that was getting me through that period of my life, which was music that reminded me of good memories growing up, family parties, school, college, things with friends, all those lots of different things and different things that we experience through our life. Most songs that you listen to from earlier years in your life have some kind of story that go on to them, otherwise you wouldn't choose to listen to them. It's something you put yes, and you want to sing to it, you want to dance to it, and you just want to move to it. And every time those came on, I would find myself just wanting to get up and have a bit of a dance and just unleash physically any emotion that I was holding in. And then it would be like taking a massive deep breath and just blowing away everything that was building up internally. So loved the music. It was making me feel better. Dancing to it was giving me a really powerful emotional release, but I couldn't use it in the concepts that I was teaching because it didn't fit. But it was the music that sets my soul alive. So I had to create something that did that. And my music is extremely diverse. My taste is so broad, from my grandparents being amazing at doing the jive and the rock and roll and all of that. So I love rock and roll music. I love a lot of 50s and 60s music. But then my parents' generation's a lot of sort of late 60s, 70s into early 80s music. And then being an 80s child myself, sort of late 80s, I really love the 80s and the 90s. And so there's so much going on, and all those people have different genres that have impacted my life. Dad loves a bit of heavy metal, a bit of rock. Mum loved ABBA, absolutely obsessed with ABBA. We had Dancing Queen as her song at her funeral. And so there was lots of different influences the whole time. So my taste in music is so wide that I couldn't ring fence anything. So I was like, okay, this class is going to have lots of different decades of music, lots of different genres of music. It's not going to ring fence anything. It's just going to be any songs that just make you feel good, make you think about good memories from the past, that make you want to just move your body and sing along to them. That's what we're going to do in this class. I just then needed a name for it, really. And it was, I came up with a few. They weren't all good. One was which is horrendous. And then I got the thesaurus out and started working through different keywords associated with what I was trying to achieve. And reloaded was one of the words that came up. And it's not really a word that was commonly used then.
Yeah.
There is a radio station that took on the name with Reloaded in it, and they put the trademark in for that the same day I actually launched.
Oh, did they?
Random piece of information I've discovered over the years. But at the time, Reloaded wasn't really a word that people was using. So I was like, that's great. No one else is using that. That will stand out. It's different decades. And always had this mindset of, you know, like reloading your favorite songs into the jukebox.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seemed like that was the right fit, and that happened, and that was the name and where it all came from. And then it was just a case of trying to explain to people why we were doing that and getting them into the mix to come and try it out.
So when you introduce Decade, you talk about the impact on mental health, and you bring that into the introduction, which is, I mean, when I first saw you do that class and how you introduced it blew me away. It was so succinct and precise, and I wondered, have you had training on mental health and no training?
I have in mental health. I have a lot of personal experience with mental health, and I have done some training in mental health as well. And I did run my training through certain mental health professionals.
Oh, wow!
So, and I've done a lot of. I have had a very good relationship with our local Mind here in Colchester, as well, who have also been wonderful over the years with supporting Decades Reloaded. So, but when I sort of shook my head, it's like, it's mind blowing that anyone says to me that how I've come across is so clear and precise, because I'm such a bumbling, just blurb. Like the mouth moves before the brain's engaged quite a lot, and I had to rehearse that quite a lot.
Really? Wow, it was very, very, very good. Very good.
There's it's to do with the BPD. My brain's firing off in too many directions at once. So I have to really pull back and think about what I'm trying to say and try and sort of simmer down, because it can be like a kettle that's just boiled and everything's just, all the steam's coming out, but you've put your face over the top of the kettle, so you're not ready for that level of steam. So you just got to bring it back down a bit, so you don't.
Sounds like me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have to just wind it in a little bit.
But it's you, and it's what makes you unique, and I think that comes through in everything that you do. So you created the concept, you got the name. So what was your next step? Where did you get it out to the masses, and did you get other people on the training course? How did that all come into fruition?
So when I first designed Decades, it was never going to be something that I trained other people to do. Not in a million years. Not in a million years. That is not something that I ever saw myself doing. I definitely am not the kind of person to think, do you know what, I can go out and tell people how to do this stuff. Not at all. So it was more about just keeping it local and getting people in who were local, who would appreciate what it was about and the ideas behind it, who were perhaps feeling a little bit lost and they needed somewhere to go and just come and feel better. So the next thing I actually did was think about my logo, because there's no point in putting a class out there to people at a time where it was 2019 when I launched it. And at that time, I'd say branded concepts were a big thing, especially where I am. And so if it looked like a brand and it looked professional, people were more likely to want to come and see what it was about. So I spent quite a lot of time designing the logo, deciding a little bit more about the fundamentals of the class, like how I was going to get people to interact with one another on a more social level. The colours used for the branding, I was very specific about the colours in terms of how they impact your mindset, and how I was going to then manage the relationships that were being developed in that environment, so everybody coming would feel supported as much outside of class as what they did inside of class, which was a bit of additional territory that I wasn't doing beforehand. I was doing a lot of work in gyms. I didn't have to worry about the aftermath quite so much, but I wanted to have relationships with everyone that was coming into my classes and be able to be like a comfort blanket to people. So I spent quite a lot of time working on that. I upskilled again. I did another mental health. I'd done mental health in sport and physical activity, but then I wanted to be a mental health first aider as well. So I went on and did that. And then I launched Decades, and I taught it completely free for a whole month.
Oh, wow. Did you? Oh,
so expensive. So expensive.
in Colchester?
In Colchester. I took on a massive hall in a prime area in Colchester. And I said, come along. It's not going to cost you anything. It's going to cost me a fortune. It's not going to cost you anything.
What was the response? How did that go?
So the first class, I had about 15 people show up. Like, okay, that's all right. That's 15 people.
Yeah.
And then the next week, I had a few more people show up. And then the next week, I had 36 people show up. And the following week, I was full.
Way.
And it was perfect, actually, to offer it completely free, because it gave me 4 weeks to work through any teething problems. Straight away, first class, the warm-up didn't work. I'd chosen a mashup mix of some top 90s songs, and something just didn't click. It didn't resonate. It wasn't right. So straight away, week 2, I changed it. Then I took some track requests from the people in week 2, and I dropped them in week 3. And then by week 4, I had another warm-up done to Stevie Wonder, and he works wonders. Permanently after I put Stevie Wonder on the playlist, and it just stayed full all the way up until we went into lockdown.
Wow, that's amazing.
So we launched at the start of September, and then we went into lockdown in March. So everything went online. And then I had people that weren't from Colchester joining me because we were online. And I think I was a bit lucky because I'd already put stuff online in the February, not knowing. I had no idea that we were going to go into lockdown or any of that. The pandemic was not something that crossed my mind. I'd been filming sort of Latin style dance fitness and things like that to put online anyway beforehand. So I already had all an online setup there. So I just took all of my classes straight online. And so it was really nice because we did get people from everywhere, but still Decades was the one that people were still religiously booking onto. And we would all have a good chat afterwards. I'd always try and make sure there wasn't a class after it, so everybody could spend a little bit of time talking, connecting, still feeling like they were socially connected to other people, even though they weren't able to go outside of their houses. And then I started to get comments like, why are you only teaching this in Colchester? Why are you not sharing this with other people? Are there any instructors in my area? No. Okay, so I thought about it a little bit, and I thought I could share this with some other people, I suppose. I don't really want to do big things like Zumba and stuff like that because I don't have the capacity to do that. I'd already had a second baby at this point, so there was no desire to take over the world. But you know, if other people were enjoying it online and they really wanted it in their areas, then it was worth exploring, being able to share that with other people, because at the end of the day, the whole point was to help people. So I wrote out some steps that I would put into a certification, started drawing up some stuff and really deep diving into the mental health side of things on there, because I thought, well, the reason why my classes have remained consistent is because of the time that I put in supporting people that come to the classes, the level of empathy and understanding that's involved. And so people feel like they're not just walking into a safe space, they're walking into a place where they feel understood, and not just by the instructor, but everybody else in the room. Mm-hmm. And when you feel like you're surrounded by people that just understand what's going on, it feels far more manageable on your bad days as well as your good days to go. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that we can do to help people overcome. Even the first idea of attending a class can be quite daunting. Even now, I don't like going to someone else's class. I hate it. Mm. Absolutely hate it, especially if I don't know where I'm going or anybody in the room. And that feeling of feeling like if there's any sort of like group work going on in the class, or the rows would move around, or people would buddy up, feeling like the last one to be picked in class. You know?
I do.
And I didn't want that in my classes. So everything's done as a whole, or there's a lot of free movement so people can just unravel. And I wanted to explain to other instructors why that works and help them implement that, and not just with decades as their class, but across everything they do in life. It doesn't even have to be their fitness timetable, just any interactions they have with people throughout their life, just understanding how to break down some of those mental health related barriers to going and participating in something, whether it be going out socializing, or a family event, or a fitness class, or walking onto the gym floor, or I don't know, going and joining a football game. It's getting people over that first hurdle was really important. But then once you've got them in, you need to keep supporting them from then on up onwards. They need to become an extension of you, so to speak. There has to be a fine line between how much you take on, don't get me wrong, but when you build relationships up between everybody in the room, the onus isn't really on you anymore. It becomes about those relationships that have all established because of the safe space you've created for them. And when people come along locally, they'll say, oh, we're all here because of you. No, you're not. I am just a facilitator. I facilitate a safe, welcoming environment for you to come into. I create opportunities for you to get to know one another and connect with one another. I put on good music that everybody enjoys. I facilitate a space for you to dance, let loose. I don't mind how you do it. That's all I do. The rest of it, all these relationships that you've all got going on that makes you all want to be around each other, that's you lot. Nothing new with me. And it works the same now outside of class. I don't even have to be there. They'll all get together. If somebody's struggling, 6 or 7 of them will all meet up and help the other one out. And that's what I try and train our instructors to do, is to be able to facilitate those possibilities for people within their classes, as well as teaching them the actual decades stuff, the dancing. It's a lot more important that they learn about how to build that community, that supportive community up, so they help people help themselves.
Got it.
Is
Very,
probably
very clever. Very, very clever. And I think maybe group exercise instructors are doing that maybe subconsciously, but this is a conscious effort and a planning, and you've got a narrative and you've got the steps to doing that. So kudos to you. Well done. Very, very clever. Really good. Um, Moving on to the business of it, how do you communicate that to somebody that doesn't know what Decades is on social media? Do you provide the marketing materials? Do you help your instructors with all that? Because that's always the make or break, isn't it? How do people actually market it in a sea of so many different group fitness concepts, ideas, and classes all around the country? How do your instructors show that on social? How do they market it?
So I do create the marketing materials for, oh, something's just popped up here. I do create the marketing materials for our instructors to use. And if there's sort of poignant messages to go out in terms of different awareness days in regards to mental health, we have posts dedicated to that on the main Decades Reloaded socials. And then within our community of instructors, that information is shared with them for them to relay on, so they can share it more targeted to their local community rather than just sharing all over off of our socials, because whatever's on the main social media channels isn't necessarily hitting, you know, Margaret that went to Marks and Spencer's normal last week, because she might not know that it exists, so she wouldn't be following our socials, but she might have met, I'll use Hannah as an example, she's one of my instructors down south. She lives in a tiny little place, and she's got her social media following who keep it just to local businesses, you know, and they might have come to her for something different that she was doing originally, but then she's talking about how her Decades Reloaded class is supporting, so like yesterday being World Mental Health Awareness Day on the 10th. Is it Thursday today? So that was Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
The week's a blur. Had she not relayed that on, they might not have seen it.
Got it.
So we give them the information to give out, but actually, because of what they've learned in their training, a lot of them are very proactive in going out and looking for the information themselves as well. And we have a monthly email that goes out as well with key dates and things to be mindful of that are coming up. So it's all there, like a little nudge.
Got it. For any fitness professional that would love to get their brand out there, give me a couple of top tips that you have used or things that you've got through experience in getting your own brand out there.
Don't get in your own way. It's probably
massive.
The biggest thing. There's been loads actually that I see right now, especially with the community instructor pages and stuff that I follow, with lots of people talking about imposter syndrome, and that nearly stopped me from releasing Decades. And I think it's really important to just sit back and say to yourself, this is what I want to achieve. This is how I want to achieve it. And this is how it's going to benefit people. They're all of my pros, versus will people not like what I'm doing? Will somebody judge me and criticize me? It's not such a big, does it really matter? If you're going to change and transform, if you've got something really important to do and say with your business and you really want to make a difference to people's lives, just remember it doesn't really matter what other people think of you. You're making a difference, you're helping people, and you can't do that whilst you're keeping it all to yourself. So in terms of actually putting the business out, really thinking about your concept before it goes anywhere and making sure that it's fully tried and tested before putting it out. Marketing is so important. I mean, I can't actually imagine Decades Reloaded being different colors if I had used blue or red in my marketing, that wouldn't have been the best color choices for something that relates to mental health because of what those colors mean. If I didn't demonstrate what the product was and demonstrate it succeeding, would people have trust in the brand? So it had to be established before asking anybody else to trust me with their business. So I think people need to do that before they go out. And if you think it's awesome and other people are telling you it's awesome, just do it.
Absolutely.
It feels great. I'm so tired, so busy, but it feels great. Just get on with it. Don't let anybody stop you, because if you know what you're talking about and it's worth talking about, then somebody else needs to know about it.
So true. Oh, fantastic. What a story. I feel there's so much more. I thought you've only given us the bare bones. Lucy, where can people find you? Where are you hanging out? Which platform?
So we are on Instagram as Decades Reloaded Fitness, and Facebook, Decades Reloaded, is at Decades Reloaded. And then we're on TikTok as well, and Threads. I don't understand Threads, but I'm on Threads.
Are you on YouTube? Can people have a look at what Decades is on YouTube?
It is on YouTube. Admittedly, I'm a little bit lax on posting to YouTube. There's not huge amounts on there, but there are some videos on there to give demonstrations of what Decades Reloaded is, and there are plenty on the Decades Reloaded website as well, where there's loads more information. There is a whole page dedicated to mental health support. So if anybody is struggling right now, they can easily find any information they need to get links through to Mind, the Samaritans, and various other resources that are available, as well as finding out about the instructor training that we offer online and on the app too. And there's loads of videos on there. So,
thank you. Oh, well, Lucy Taylor, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I've enjoyed speaking to you. And if anybody's got any questions, comments, thoughts about anything that we've discussed today, please feel free to reach out to Lucy or myself. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for being part of the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing your story.